This project is sponsored by Total Boat. Click on the link in the description and visit Total Boat to learn more about the Halcyon Clear Varnish finish that I'm using on this project. You can find paints, finishes, epoxy, and more at totalboat.com. This was my first major woodworking project. I made it way back in the late 1980s. I made it for my parents, and at the time, Knotty pine with this whitewash finish was kind of the big deal. When they downsized, I got it back, and it's been in the shop here for maybe 15 or 20 years. And I was going to get rid of it, but I've decided to keep it and refinish it and swap out this fancy hardware with something more simple. These are some of the products you'll need for the project. Your paint remover, this is CitriStrip, and this is ZipStrip. I've used both of them. Apparently this one is less toxic, but they both work. You'll need a 4-inch putty knife. It's also good to have a 2-inch putty knife, a throwaway brush, at least one, a few containers to hold your cabinet hardware and to hold the product, sandpaper, 150 grit and 100 grit. This stuff has a strong smell, so get a respirator. You definitely want to wear a respirator. You need some good strong gloves. These light blue gloves will fall apart from the paint remover. This is synthetic steel wool. And the number 3 is for coarse. It's made by 3M, and you're going to need that. You'll need a bunch of rags, and for the finish, I'm using Halcyon Clear Satin Varnish from Total Boat, and I'll have a link to the finish in the description below. To get started, I'll remove all the drawers, find a place to store and organize the tools, and remove the hardware. I removed all the hardware, and now I'm ready to apply the CitriStrip stripping gel. This takes about a half an hour to start working. I did test it out. So I'm going to apply it to all the drawer fronts and door fronts, and then I'll go back to the first one that I applied it to and start working. This is apparently less toxic than other paint removers. That's why I'm using it, but it does suggest to open the windows and doors for good ventilation. So I'm going to do that even though it's winter. I'm also going to wear gloves, eye protection, and a mask. I'm using a throwaway brush to apply the paint remover, and it's important to apply it very thick. It only took about 15 minutes to apply it to the doors and drawers, so I'll apply it to the cabinet next. By the time I finish with the cabinet, the paint remover will have had enough time so I can start working on the first drawer. I'll start with the putty knife to remove most of the old finish. Then I'll use the coarse synthetic steel wool to remove the rest. Next, I'll use a rag to remove any of the paint remover that was left behind. Now I'll repeat this process on the doors, drawers, and the cabinet. After removing all of the finish, I'll let the cabinet and all the parts sit until the next day before sanding. Okay, well, I've finished with the paint remover on all of the parts, including the big cabinet. And even though this paint remover says no harsh fumes on the label, it definitely has a very strong smell. So I'm going to continue to keep the door cracked and the window open, and the next step is to sand. I'll sand all the flat surfaces with 100 grit paper in the orbital sander, and then to get into some of those tight spots, I'm using 150 grit paper on the palm sander. Now I've got all of the parts sanded to 150, the doors, the drawers, and the cabinet. The next step is the finish. And for the finish on this project, I'm using Total Boat's Halcyon Clear Satin Varnish. And before I pour it into the cup, I'll turn the bag upside down and give it a good squeeze for about a minute to mix it up. When I spray this finish, I like to thin it with water by about 10%. If you don't have a spray system, you can also apply this finish with a brush. The Halcyon Clear Varnish levels out really nicely and dries in about an hour. Since I do have a spray system, I of course am going to use it because it's a huge time saver. I'll apply 3 coats, allowing about an hour of dry time between coats. Because I distressed this cabinet when I made it, it would be impossible to remove all the paint from some of the distressed areas. So I didn't get too crazy about removing every little bit of paint, and I think it actually creates a nice contrast with the now honey-colored wood next to the white distressed areas. I really didn't count on the shadow left behind from the old hardware, so I don't think the simple knobs are going to work. For now, I'll just clean up the old hardware and put it back on. I'm using the same paint remover to remove the paint from the old hardware. Again, I'll let it sit for a bit and then clean it up with a piece of steel wool and a rag. Now I've got the hardware on all of the drawers, and the project's just about finished. But before I put the drawers back in the cabinet, I'm going to use this candlestick and rub it anywhere where the drawer comes in contact with the cabinet. So this part here prevents the drawer from tipping forward. And then I'll flip the drawer over and apply it to the runners at the bottom and the sides. And this will keep the drawer running much smoother. Well, I'm really happy with the way this project turned out. I think it looks pretty good in the shop and has tons of great storage, so I'm glad I kept it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.